What is the best cheating the system you have seen? So I work in the luggage claim department for a major airline. All day I get to hear customers yelling and complaining. What I did is borrow one of the wheelchairs from the airport and sit behind my desk all day long. Customers come in all angry, see me in the wheelchair, realize they are about to yell at a guy who is possibly crippled, and all of a sudden they turn into the nicest people. Physically my blood pressure has dropped, and in general I'm in a pretty good mood most of the time. My boss will often check the date modified on certain files on our server to see if I have updated or even opened a certain file recently. So, I have installed a changer utility that allows me to modify the date modified on any file. This comes in most handy when my boss wants to give me weekend assignments. I just come in on Monday morning and change the date modified to Saturday night, and he thinks I was actually doing something for work on Saturday night. I've actually received a lot of kudos for this. I don't feel bad though, because my boss is a huge dickhead. My wife and I were at a super fancy restaurant in New York City. Reservations not allowed, expect to wait. We get there and are told we would be waiting about 2 hours. No problem, we planned on this. Some guy right after us shook the reservation guy's hand, handing him $200. Next thing I know I hear table 42 for Thomas. Thomas being my name, and I asked for a table of 2. I say that is me. They sit us, and we ordered drinks and apps. 5 minutes later they say we are the wrong Thomas, but we could stay since we had already ordered. Guess who was the right Thomas? The guy who paid $200 to skip the line. When I was in college, I had this meal plan where the school essentially took my actual money and turned it into campus dollars that could only be spent at school dining halls and cafes. I didn't mind so much until the end of the semester when I was informed that any unspent campus dollars would go away. I had more than $100 left and only a day to spend them. Here's what I did. I went to the nicest campus restaurant, the one where you're supposed to take your parents when they come to visit. Basically, a real restaurant with waitstaff that also happened to take campus dollars. I got the most expensive thing on the menu and then called the waiter over. I asked him if I could tip him in campus dollars, and he said yes. I asked him if he would have immediate access to those campus dollars in the form of actual money, and he said yes. So I made him a deal. I gave him a monster tip, and he gave me half of it back in actual money. Many years later, I'm still proud of this. I made a server's day, screwed the man, and got my money back. Whenever people come to the pool where I lifeguard and have guests with them, I always ask them if they live more than 50 miles away. Our policy is guests from more than 50 miles away don't pay guest fees. If they say no, I give them the look and ask them again. They usually say yes after that, saving customers $2 like a boss. The college I commuted to didn't have enough parking for the commuters, but roughly 10 times what it needed for the residents. One day I was forced to park in the resident parking and got a ticket. Every day I had to park there, I'd slip the ticket under my windshield wiper and walk on into class. The cars around me would get tickets, but they'd just leave the old one on my windshield, figuring they already got me. Never even paid it. Worcester State did a horrible job of enforcing parking fines 10 years ago. I used to work in a camera store that sold warranties. No matter how the camera broke, they would fix it or replace it under the warranty. The only problem was that the store would ship off the camera to be repaired, sometimes for months, up to 5 times before replacing it. So, let's say your battery cover breaks off. You ship it off, and 6 weeks later it's back. But, it's really a brand defect, so, the cover pops off again. They won't replace the whole piece or give you another camera. You're out the camera for months while it's being fixed. They keep selling the defective camera and the warranties. I got tired of messing over customers. I thought it was dishonest. I read the contract myself and found an interesting clause. If the camera was so physically damaged that it was obvious it couldn't be fixed, we could take a pic of it and send that instead. The person immediately got a new camera. When people would come in with a camera with a defect I'd seen 100 times, I'd ask if they just wanted a new one, the next model up, without the defect. They'd say yes, and I'd tell them to take it out into the parking lot and run over it with their car. I'd pile the pieces on the counter, take a pic, and give them their new non-defective camera. I slept fine. A teacher I had in high school always said to his students, if you can get away with cheating, go for it. Turns out he had gotten a raise for getting his master's degree, but never actually got the degree. This went on for over 10 years before the school system figured it out. Somehow he got hired at a new school too. Papa John's offers an unadvertised, maybe unofficial, deal where pizzas that were ordered, but never picked up are sold for $5 just before closing. Size and toppings doesn't affect the $5 price, so my friends and I used to order family-sized meat lovers pizzas and opt to pay at pickup but never show up. We would wait till closing, pop our heads in, and ask if there were any leftover pizzas on the rack for sale, thus getting our huge pizzas for $5. I'm from Northern Ireland, and when ordering stuff online I'd always write Belfast, Ireland on it instead of NI. The post'll still get there, as yes, technically Belfast's in Ireland. The post would be directed via the Dublin sorting office instead of coming into the UK routes. 9 times out of 10, the Dublin sorting office would just send it on up to Belfast, instead of forwarding it to Royal Mail in London, who would then slap a huge import bill on it, whereas the Southern Irish Postal Service can't charge me import, as I'm a UK citizen. The Republic of Ireland couldn't give a fuck if the Queen's out of pocket over a few quid. My granddad was a Royal Mail postman for years. He taught me that one. Back in high school I discovered that if you call any questions/comments number on a food product, you could make up literally anything and get a coupon for a free whatever it was. So for instance we'd call Bisquick pancake mix and say we bought a jar of mix, but inside we found 3 already made pancakes, crap like that. Just nonsensical stuff. We did it so much that we'd pile up the coupons, go to the grocery store and check out a full cart of groceries and just hand the cashier a stack of these coupons and not pay a cent for hundreds of dollars worth of groceries. We did that multiple times, and eventually the big companies, Kraft, General Mills, etc., catch on and you have to use different names and addresses. I'll never forget the exasperation of the poor person on the other end of the line when I told them the chicken patties I bought just get more frozen every time I put them in the microwave. The kids are outside playing hockey with the freaking thing right now. This is bullcrap. In the good old days of Black Friday, before stores like Best Buy started getting very crafty and clandestine with their deals, 8+ years ago, there used to be a slight buffer where someone would leak the sales and the items wouldn't be removed from the shelves. I don't remember specifically, but they had a system to prevent you from purchasing then pre-imaging retroactively. As soon as this happened I strolled on down to Best Buy, took a bunch of stuff that I wanted, and put it in their dryers and washing machines. Basically whatever hiding place that didn't look like it got a lot of browsing or consideration. Then when Black Friday comes, sleep in, head to the store around noon and pull the doorbusters out of a washing machine. When I was a precociously computer savvy 10 to 11-year-old, I found a website that parents could set up as a reward system for children doing chores. The parent would set up an account listing several chores and assign them point values. The child, after completing these chores, could then use the points to buy various items offered on the website. There was, somehow, no charge for any of the stuff. So, I created 2 email accounts, 2 passwords on the site, and set up a really generous reward system where I got tons of points for doing imaginary chores. I used this to buy a crapload of Pokemon cards that I then played with my grandpa because I didn't actually have any friends. No one will probably see this because there are so many comments, but here it goes. This may not be as much about beating the system as it is about being a persistent enough pain in the ass to get what I had worked for. For length's sake, pertinent details only. A professor in my second college refused to grant me the credits for work I'd done in my previous school. She was supposed to, but because she was a bigwig of sorts, no one challenged her in my behalf. My diploma was withheld on graduation day. The secretary smugly told me the dean was too busy to speak with me and that I was out of luck. Now, I knew he was always on the office phone attached to the fax, so I took advantage of that. I went home, found all my original papers, 70 or 80-ish, and the moment his line went free, I began faxing the papers, one after the other, a never fucking ending stream of documents. After sending the 40th or so paper, my mom's phone rang. Picked it up, and the secretary was almost in a panic. She said I was tying up the line. The dean approved my papers, and he said, "Can you just please stop and come get your diploma?" Which I did. On my graduation day. My university used to have a debit card system for vending machines on campus. Your uni ID would act as your debit card, and you could swipe them at vending machines to buy snacks. My friends and I found out that the system could be gamed if you only had $1.50 in your account. Also the price of a 20-ounce soda. You could swipe your ID at multiple vending machines that were next to each other, and then select multiple drinks/food from the machines, and only get charged $1.50. The glitch was that account balance could never be a negative number, so if you got charged $1.50 5 times at the same time, and you only had a $1.50 in the account, your account would just end up with a $0 balance. About 3 years ago, I bought an old battered Xbox off of Craigslist for $40. Apparently the previous owners never registered it, and, at the time, Microsoft was allowing Xboxes less than 2 years old to be replaced if they had ROD. This thing was older than that, but I figured I had nothing to lose, so I sent it in. Microsoft never said a word, and I got a brand new one in the mail about 2 weeks later. When I quit a job over a decade ago, my ass of a boss forgot to submit my termination form. I kept getting paid for over 3 months, and I was a manager, making pretty good coin. I knew they'd eventually catch it, and I thought they'd ask for the money back, so I banked every check and didn't spend a cent. So the paychecks eventually stopped after 3+ months, and I waited for the call or letter asking for the money. It never came. 2 years later I used the money to buy my hot tub. Now my ass gets massaged by bubbling water thanks to my incompetent ex-boss. When I was in college there was a pay-by-the-hour parking lot right next to the College of Business. Accounting major, the university charged $1 an hour to use the parking lot, or you could park 2 miles away, wait for a bus, and then ride it to and from campus. Being the savvy business student I was, every year at the beginning of the fall semester I would park in the pay lot, buy a ticket, and then run home and enter it into a spreadsheet. I'd record the first day of classes as day 1 in the first field, and then enter the ticket number that I had received that day in a separate field. Needless to say, after 3 weeks, I would have a strong enough amount of data to plot a line of best fit using simple algebra that I had learned in college, and was able to predict a ticket number for any given day. I'd then scan a ticket into my school laptop and use Photoshop to edit the date, time, and ticket number. Printed that bitch out, stuck it in my window, and cashed in on free parking. Sure, it was a bit dangerous, but it saved me a shit ton of time and money. Plus, my argument if I was ever caught was to explain that I used those skills that the university had taught me in my courses to take advantage of a flawed system. My ethics teacher would have been pissed, but I know my management and econ professors would have been proud. At my university they have parking passes which scale in price depending on what time of day you use them. Most expensive is 24-hour and the rest scale down in price and level of most traffic to least. The parking garages are also open to the public at a daily rate. A lot of my friends bought the cheapest pass with the most constricting hours. I think it's only after 4 PM they can use them. So what they do is come in the morning and take a ticket as if they are going to use a daily rate. Then at the end of the day they swipe out with their garage pass. When I was a teenager I worked at a McDonald's where the beverages were self-serve. We just sold you the cup. Once, on a particularly slow day, when I was the only one at the registers, an older man walked in with an empty gallon of milk carton, walked over to the Coke dispenser, and started to fill. It took a full minute or two, and he actually looked over at me once, where I was watching him utterly fascinated. When he was done, he put the little cap back on, nodded to me, then walked back out to his car. My sister and I were once given questionnaires at an aquarium where you had to scratch off the correct answers to questions that were hidden around the complex. If you got them all right, you won a prize. I figured that I could just scratch off all the answers on one sheet and then just do the correct answers on the other and hand that in. Perfect score. You know how those sites that you can buy access for 3 months then have to cancel, or they continue to charge you. I went down and spent $50 on an Amex gift card, the kind that is just like a credit card, but not tied to you in any way. I went around and used up the $50 on multiple sites, knowing that after the 3 months the money was gone, and they couldn't charge a card W/O money on it. Took them a couple years to figure it out and cut me off. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.